Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to BAN-KAST. This will be covering Bleach, Thousand Year Blood War Arc, Episode 28, Kill the King. And we're just chilling out with Yhwach in this astral pool. We're just floating in the void of existence. I hope the water temperature is adequate. just Yhwach, just like, yep, this is existence for me. So, this is how we kick off the episode. A lot of deviations from the manga on this one. If you're following along with the manga, this kicks off volume 68, which is one of my favorite volumes because it has Askin right there on the cover. Love Askin Naklevar. Askin doesn't show up in this episode. None of the Stern Ritter Royal Guard really show up in this episode, which is actually a funny thing that even in the manga, I'm kind of curious, like, what are they doing while Ichigo and Chad? I mean, Chad is going to the Soul Palace. Doesn't somebody want to stop Chad? Last episode, they were just kind of all, like, you know, kneeling down and allowing Yhwach to pass to go up to the inner palace to kill the Reo. And I guess the other ones are just like, all right, we're just gonna hang out down here and wait until Yhwach to come back down. Oh, Ichigo's group is going up. It's all right. Yhwach's got this. He can predict everything. He can see the future. He's fine. We're just gonna go over here and just chill out and eat some grapes, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, we kick off the episode though, complete deviation from the manga, not in the manga at all, where we see what I guess can be described as Yhwach's, like, origin. Now, we already kind of got Yhwach's origin, where he was a baby, which is not in and of itself that weird. I would say most people were babies at one point. But Yhwach was kind of a unique baby in that he could not see, hear, smell, touch, or taste anything. Rather, whenever somebody came in contact with Yhwach, part of Yhwach's soul would be put into that person, and that would fix various things wrong with them, whether it be like something physical, like they lost an arm in a war or something, the arm would grow back. If they were dealing with crippling depression, that depression would, like, fill in, and they would feel more whole, okay? And the trade-off for that is when they died, part of their soul and Yhwach's soul that he lent out would go back into the baby, and that slowly regained his, you know, form and everything like that. So here, though, we see Yhwach chilling out in this pool, and this individual right here is also hanging out on top of the water, and this is the Reo, and the Reo is holding this giant key-looking object. It's almost like some kind of Oken or something, or a Zanpakuto, because in Bleach, everything is a Zanpakuto. So this is the way things worked after the Soul King started to take control. So probably should go talk to somebody that has actually read all of Can't Fear Your Own World to understand the whole back lore of the Soul King and everything. But just a general abridged version of this. Back when the world was all chaotic and one meshed thing, you know, the triplet world did not exist yet, there were hollows, and hollows began to emerge, and then there were Menos that began to evolve from these hollows, and the Soul King, who I'm actually just going to reveal this now because we find out his name in this episode. This was something that Kubo brought up in the Club Outside stuff a little while ago. Somebody asked him, what is the name of the Reo? And Kubo was like, oh, well, he does have a name. I've given it to the anime staff. If it comes up, it comes up. And his name is Adonais. That is the name of the Soul King, Soul King Adonais. It's based off of Adonai, which is another name for the Judeo-Christian god. This is something that is taken from, because that's Yhwach's name as well, like YHWH in Hebrew, which is an abjad. Abjads only have consonants and not vowels, so that's why the vowels are kind of inferred. You kind of have to, like, imply the vowels, so that's how you get, like, Yahweh out of, you know, YHWH, kind of the same thing with Yhwach, okay, even though his name is written as, you know, YHWH, kind of a thing, right? So that's where they got the name, or Kubo got the name Adonais, right? So it's a really badass name. So Adonais was like, oh, these Menos are taking over. Fuck that. I am going to cause stability to this world. So this is back before the Soul King was betrayed and had all of his limbs ripped off. This was the order of the world back then. This was, you know, the visual representation of the Soul King, of the Reo Adonais in this upper realm with this mighty, like, Oken item, and he was basically basically just keeping everything in order as the literal keystone linchpin in this realm, okay? And we see around him these different worlds like spinning. And then we have the moment where all of his limbs are ripped off, where he is betrayed, and the other 5 precursors to what we become later on, the Shinigami and stuff. Ichibei, most likely one of them. I think actually was confirmed Ichibei was one of them, but there were others. And they were like, hey, we don't trust the Reo because he's got too much power, so we're going to, like, take that power away from him, and we're going to make our own world. And so they do that, but they still don't trust him, and they're like, we're going to rip off all of his limbs and trap him in this crystal, which the crystal is like a very reddish crystal, so it's I picture just a crystal of like his own blood he's basically trapped in. And apparently this is agony. This is absolute agony and suffering for Adonais for millions and millions of years, and it's a pretty fucked up story, and it's a story that doesn't exactly paint the Shinigami, at least the original Shinigami, the origin of the Shinigami, in a great light, okay? They're basically like, hey, this guy's got too much power, even though he seems rather benevolent, and he was nice enough to allow them to rip off all of his limbs and trap him in a crystal of his own blood. They were like, no, we can't trust this guy, right? So we see an image of Yhwach as he's actually falling out of this pool and regressing to an infant, and then that's where everything picks up with him landing, I guess, in the living world, and that's where everybody started to, like, praise him as a god, and all of the voices of the Forsaken, all of the suffering voices go back into Yhwach when they die. So Yhwach basically has, like, the Philosopher's Stone from, like, Full Metal Alchemist, like, the screams of, like, hundreds of thousands, millions of people are, like, inside of his soul at all times, and he's like, do you hear their screams, Father? Do you hear their screams? Oh yeah, Ichigo's also here too, in a fun little, like Ichigo's kind of like bug-eyed here, and we see an image of Yhwach lording over Ichigo, and this actually pans out to reveal that this is Ichigo kind of having a trippy vision as he's ascending to the Soul Palace with Orihime, Yoroichi, chatting Ganju. I love the fact that Ganju is there. Ganju is gonna save the day. You have my word. He didn't really do much in the manga, but trust me, something gonna go happening with Ganju. Ganju and Chad are gonna team up and defeat Gerard properly or something. I don't know. Something's gonna happen with him. You wait. You wait. But yeah, Ichigo has this trippy vision, and he's just kind of like, what was that? What was that? Okay, probably nothing. All right, well, let's keep going. So we cut back down to the Seirete, where now that Yhwach has stabbed the Reo through the heart, we actually find out later, I guess the Reo does not have a heart anymore, so this maybe explains why he didn't immediately die. Also, he's kind of God, so, like, he's the closest thing to God in Bleach, basically, so stabbing him right through the chest, probably not going to be as damaging as, like, an actual human getting stabbed in the chest. However, getting stabbed in the chest, even though he is God, does kind of cause a little bit of a kerfluffle in the other worlds, so everywhere begins to shake, and it's just a mild tremor kind of earthquake, but it's kind of like everywhere all at once, and it's enough to get everybody's attention. So, Ruki and everybody, and then the research and development division are freaking out. Uehara's there. Here's Basby kind of thinking about what he's gonna do next. We all know what Basby's gonna do next. If you've read the manga, you know what's on Basby's mind right now. His mind is focused on one thing, and it's a tall drink of water with long blonde hair. That's what he's focused on right now. So we have the world of the living here. Oh, this is a great scene, by the way. We have Isshin, but then we also have this shot of Ryukin. And if we go back here, Ryukin has something in his hand, and he's in his office, and he's looking at... Bam! Right there! They have it! They fucking have it! Oh, yes! Oh! Oh my god, I'm so glad they included this. Alright. We all know, if you've read the manga, this is spoiler-heavy podcast, by the way. We spoil things here, so understand that. If you haven't read the manga, you should go away and read it, then come back, and you'll understand my elation at this. This substance that Ryukin is holding in his hand kind of just looks like some pieces of metal or maybe some pebbles. Maybe it's some sugar for his coffee. I don't know. No. Okay. This substance is called still silver. All right, and cool name. It's got the alliteration. I love alliteration. It could also be called Soul Silver, which I think is a Pokemon game. But anyway, still silver. All right, so the way that Yhwach is defeated in the manga, as originally written, all right, Yhwach has all these crazy god powers, right? Like, at the end of the story, not only does he have the Almighty, but he also absorbs the Mimihage, he absorbs the entire Reo, he has crazy god powers, there's no way you can beat him. In the 11th hour, like a few chapters before this, Ryukin and Ishin show up to the Soul Palace. They give Uryu a arrowhead made of this substance, of this still silver, and Ryukin explains, yeah, so when Yhwach performs the Aswalen, the consecration, the holy selection on Quincy's, Quincy's have a silver blood clot form in their heart, in their arteries, and that kills them, and it's made out of this substance, still silver. Now, sometimes when Yhwach performs the Aswalen, it just kind of like, turns you into a skeleton and kills you instantly. Other times it gives you a silver blood clot, whatever. This is what happened to Kanai Katagiri. This is what happened. Back there you see a picture of Uryu and Kanai Katagiri, Uryu's mom and Ryukin's wife. This is what happened to her. So this substance appeared in her heart, and Ryukin, being a doctor and a surgeon, performed the autopsy on his wife, which I'm sure was all kinds of awkward, and he took this substance out of her heart and kept it on him as like a keepsake. And that's kind of honestly kind of sweet. It's like this is a, the thing that killed her, but it's also like a thing that he keeps on him at all times to remind him of his wife, Kanai Katagiri, right? Okay. So the thing is, though, a previously unknown piece of lore to the Quincy's that was never fucking brought up is that if you take this still silver, turn it into an arrowhead, shoot it through Yhwach, he loses all of his powers. All of his powers. The powers of the Almighty, the powers that he gets when he absorbs the Mimihage and the Reo. He loses all of his powers and just becomes like a normal mortal individual that can just be killed like ordinary anybody could. And Ichigo does that. Ichigo's like, so Uryu shoots him with the arrow. He becomes, vulnerable for like a couple of seconds. Ichigo cuts him down, and that's how Yhwach dies. And the problem with that is it's a total fucking Deus Ex Machina because this arrowhead comes out of fucking nowhere. It's literally just like, oh, by the way, Yhwach's really strong. He's God. We need a way to beat God. We need a way to take away all of his powers. By the way, here you go. Have this arrowhead. If you shoot him with it, he loses all of his powers for like 5 seconds. That gives you an opening to kill him. Now, some people will bring up the moment. This is in the manga. It's a flashback that Uryu has later on. It's the scene where Uryu walks in on the autopsy room while Ryukin is, cutting up Katagiri, and Uryu's like a little kid, and he's just like, Dad, why are you cutting up Mom? Could you please not do that? I don't think she's gonna like that very much. And that's all you see, though. You just see it from Uryu's POV. You see Ryukin's back, and then the autopsy table in front of him as he's, like, performing this on Katagiri. You do not see Ryukin take out the still silver. You do not see him looking at a piece of metal like, oh, what is this? You don't have a close-up of it, and certainly no lore that is dropped that, like, this shit is so important that you could make it into an arrowhead to take away all of Yhwach's power. Does Yhwach know this is a thing? I guess he does. Like, Ryukin found out the lore somehow. I'm guessing Soken found out about it. Soken used to be a Stern Ritter. He used to be a member of Yhwach's little band, so I'm assuming Soken learned about it and wrote about it, and then Ryukin learned about it, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to take this silver out of Katagiri, because, number one, she's my wife, and I'm going to keep that, but also I can use this to actually beat him someday. I suppose. But at any rate, they don't explain anything yet. They don't talk about the still silver. We don't even know what this substance is technically in the anime. We just see Ryukin looking at it. But this is at least something. Something to at least go on here, okay? So I hope they set it up. They're probably going to do the same thing they did in the manga with using the still silver arrowhead to defeat Yhwach ultimately. But at least it's going to be built up more, man. Jeez, I'm so happy about this. Also, the theme that is playing while this is happening, while Ryukin is in his office and Ishin is outside the clinic and all of the worlds are shaking, it's this really intense, like, OST, and it's just like dun 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 dun, and it's like, like then violin, like, and I'm like, I've heard this theme before, and I was racking my brain trying to remember where I heard it from, and it's not the exact same thing, but it is very eerily close to the Friday the 13th soundtrack. When Jason is like chasing somebody through the woods, it's like donna 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 donna. It's that kind of theme. Never would have expected some Friday the 13th to be in my Bleach. I expected my Friday the 13th to get into Tokyo Ghoul, but not my Bleach, you know? So it's like, that's kind of neat. I like that. Like, I don't think that was intentional. I think they just thought it was a really intense kind of like, you know, soundtrack going on in the background, but really cool. So, yes, Yhwach has stabbed God. That's not looking too good there, but it's okay because Ichigo and the gang is here to stop him. So, there's also a big difference in the manga here from the manga, because Ichigo actually has a pretty prolonged fight scene with Yhwach here that goes into very DBZ-esque aesthetics of them zipping around the Soul Palace, like fighting each other, like, you know, like Goku and Vegeta or some shit. It's pretty cool. So, in the manga, though, there's a lot of stuff in these chapters. Like I said, we technically are going through 612 to 615, but there's a lot of stuff that's going to get moved around because of that. So we see the scenes down with, like, the research and development division. We see like Ukitake healing Kenpachi. We're gonna all see that. So at this point in the manga, like, that stuff has already kind of happened. Like, Kenpachi has already recovered and walked out of the room and is talking to everybody while this is all happening. So all that kind of stuff. And also Hiyori and everybody changing into the Yhwach shows and providing the fluid to open the gate to the Soul Palace. All that stuff is happening concurrently with this, but we don't see it in this episode. That'll be going on next episode. We get a full view of that. Oh, God, look at Ganju back there. Look at him. I just, you know, it's just, he's just the dude. Let's look at this roster here really quick. Okay, we have Ichigo Kurosaki. Main character, Quincy, Shinigami, Fullbringer, Hollow. He's got everything in him. He's the MC, trained with God, went through that shrine trial thing to basically, you know, become the next god or whatever. He's seeing freaky Soul King visions and everything like that. He's got 2 badass swords now. He's realized who he really is. He's got some new threads. He's the main character. He's going to be the one to beat Yhwach, right? Then we have Orihime and Chad back there. And it's like, okay, look, yeah, they're humans. They don't have crazy powers. Although there was a thing also in Club Outside that Kubo mentioned recently that if Orihime and Chad wanted to, like, become Shinigami, or if they had to train with an Asauchi, they could probably awaken a Zanpakuto. So take that whatever you will. But, you know, Orihime, she has the ability to reject fate and, like, time and space itself. You know, it's something that doesn't work a lot of the times, but, you know, she does ostensibly have that power. Chad is, you know, he's back there. He's got a cool outfit. Then we have Yoruichi, who's like a ninja. That's cool. Shinigami ninja lady that can, like, you know, fire a bunch of holy godly armaments and all that. And then we have Ganju, who can turn things into sand. He's got a boar named Bonnie, and the boar is not here right now, but I would have loved that to be the case. I think Kubo was just like, you know what? Let's just throw Ganju in there for maybe some antics. Unfortunately, doesn't get to do much in the manga. So can we have a moment where Ganju, like I want to have a moment where everybody's getting their shit stomped in by Yhwach, and Ichigo and Orihime and Chad and Yoruichi are all down on the ground and there's nothing they can do. And then it's just Ganju and Yhwach. And it's just like, Yhwach looks at him like, what are you even doing here? I don't even know why you're here. I can see all possible futures, and I don't even know why you are here, right? And then, I don't know, Ganju tries to, like, use Seppa on him or something, and it's just, I want that so bad. I'm rooting for you, Ganju. So they show up. And it's like, oh, yes, Ichigo. Very Bond villain-esque Yhwach here. I've been expecting you, Ichigo. I have seen it all. And so we have the intro here. Really awesome opening. There is a cool 3D shot where it zooms in on the palace. Like, we have the outside of the palace, and it just, like, when we see the inside of the palace. And it's really cool looking. But anyway, this fight lasts all but, like, 3 seconds in the manga. Basically, what happens is that Ichigo... Actually, I don't think Ichigo even really tries to attack Yhwach. he just goes to kind of pull out the sword out of the Reo. So in this scene right here, the Reo is still covered up by, like, the cloth. So they don't really see the Reo and the fact that Yhwach just stabbed him yet. It's just kind of, like, ambiguous on what's going on. Like, they think maybe we actually got here in time to actually stop the death of the Soul King, right? So they mention that, yeah, Yhwach has the eyes of the Almighty. They don't know what that is yet, but he has, like, different weird pupils. He's like, oh, yes, Ichigo, you have 2 Zanpakuto now. Yes, that's great. And so then the fight gets going. And the fight is actually pretty cool. They make use of the entire structure of the Soul Palace with those different floating cities that the members of the Zero Squad rule over. So Ichigo and Yhwach's fight gets out of the inner palace, and they get knocked down into Korinji's hot spring palace down here. There's people that live in these palaces. I guess we just don't see them here. It would have been interesting if, like, all those people showed up, like the 2 muscular dudes that were helping out at the hot springs show up. Maybe they all vanish when Korinji dies. That's actually maybe, that's kind of dark, but that kind of fits with what's the weird stuff that's going on up at the Soul Palace. Like, all those people that live up there are just, like, fragments of the various members of the Zero Squad just to use as, like, company and also, like, support when they need it. And when they die, they're all gone. So they get knocked down into the hot springs. It would be also interesting if, like, Ichigo knocked Yhwach into the hot springs and Yhwach comes out all refreshed, like, I am healed now, thank you, Ichigo. Maybe the hot springs stop working also after Korinji dies, who knows. Anyway, the fight goes on, and we get to see a bunch of techniques that Yhwach has already used previously. Keep in mind, from this one shot right here, Yhwach is not using the Almighty in this fight. He had the Almighty active in the inner palace, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna turn off the Almighty really quick. I'm gonna toggle the Almighty off, and then I'm gonna fight Ichigo and see how far he can get. So we see a lot of the same techniques that Yhwach used earlier against Ichigo, as well as when he used it against Yamamoto. This is a shot right here that's, like, straight out of DBZ, where Ichigo is just covered in, like, yellow Ryatsu and Yhwach is blue Ryatsu, and they're just zipping around the sky, like, clashing into each other. Yeah, but hey, I mean, like, it's cool to see this kind of shit because Ichigo really is like really high god level right now, right? So Yhwach pulls out his Reishi sword, not his actual sword. He obviously used that's still inside of the Reo, which, by the way, way back at, like, in the inner palace right now, Orihime, Chad, and everybody are just kind of watching this. They're not, like, checking on the Reo at all. They're not, like, moving the cloth back to see what's happening with the Soul King. They're just observing this fight between Ichigo and Yhwach, which I get it. It's a cool-ass fight, but, like, maybe you should check on the Soul King a little bit. So, yeah, he uses Sankt Zwinger again, the church hymn, Saint Ward. Ichigo uses Getsuga Tensho and then Getsuga Jujisho. Yhwach also uses the Qual Christ power, which is not named in the manga, but it's the technique that he used way back when he fought Ichigo for the first time in the Soul Society, where he makes the circle of bows, the circle of bogans, and then they all fire at the same time as the torment circle. He uses that technique again. Saint Swinger is the technique he used against Yamamoto's Zanko no Tachi South. This is apparently the Quincy spell, or the Quincy, like, limerick, or, like, the hymn that has the highest amount of defensive capabilities. Ichigo breaks through that. So it's basically just, you know, all of these techniques. Nothing new here, but it's cool to see them in an actual fight, and for Ichigo to use Jujisho again. Also, I love, because when he used Jujisho against the Sternritter clique the first time, it creates a massive, like, fallout blast that is in the shape of a cross. It's like a nuke going off, and it lingers in the sky for a while, okay? And we kind of see this giant yellow cross burning amidst the Soul Palace as Ichigo launches this attack, and all of, I guess all of everybody in the Soul Palace, so all of, like, 6 people are observing this epic godly battle right now. It's pretty damn sweet. Once again, guys, maybe Ganju, do you want to go over there and just move the cloth back? Just check on the Reo really quick. Just check on the Reo, see how he's doing, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, so I think they get eventually into Ichibei's palace. I'm pretty sure this is where that is. Yhwach gets knocked through the little building, the shrine that was there, and we get the impression that, like, oh, wow, Ichigo won! Ichigo really curb stomped that fight. Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, it's going to flip really quick here. Yhwach brings up this, like, you must have entered the Ira Zunsando. So that's, like, the Veneration Shrine. That's the place that also was not not in the manga, that Ichigo entered at the beginning of Core 2, where only by the express written permission of the Soul King, you are allowed to enter this place. And it's basically a place of trial and tribulation to test if somebody is worthy enough to become the next Soul King, or they can be burdened with the weight of all of the dimensions and all of the worlds. That's the purpose of the Ira Susando. And Ichigo went through that, and he kind of started experiencing weird, trippy headache visions, and the pupils of the Soul King started to appear in Ichigo's own pupils, and it's a thing establishing, like, Ichigo might have to become the next Soul King if this Soul King dies. And Ichibei is fully aware of this, and the other members of the Zero Squad were fully aware of this. Ichigo's not fully aware of this, which is kind of a dick thing, but it's like, hey, Ichibei is like, once again, he's like, hey, look, there's got to be a Reo. And if Yhwach kills the Reo, that in and of itself is not a bad thing. If Adonias is dead, it's not good, but it's not necessarily bad, because we can always just string somebody else up in the blood crystal, and they can become the next Soul King. And in this case, he was considering Ichigo as one of the options. Now, that is not ultimately what ends up happening. Ichigo becomes a translator, marries Orihime, and has a child in the world of living, and Yhwach gets strung up to become the next Soul King. But, you know, you want to have your options, basically, right? So, Yhwach reveals the big twist of, I wasn't even using my full power, Ichigo! And so he activates Almighty, and then the script completely flips, and now Ichigo is getting his ass handed to him, and he can't even touch Yhwach. There's even a scene that is very similar to the scene, like this shot right here. This is a shot right out of the manga that happens way fucking later, like in chapter, like, 679, I think, is when Yhwach just grabs Ichigo's face and just starts sucking out all of his power and just leaves him an empty shell on the ground. So he doesn't do that quite here, but it's a very similar looking shot. You will defeat me and protect everything. Is that your character motivation, Ichigo? So Ichigo gets knocked back into the inner palace. He's laid flat out, and then Yhwach appears out of the hole, and everybody else is like, ah! So now we cut back to the Seirei again. We see Soifone and Marechio's group. Hirako and Hinamori are also there. Once again, this is a shot in the manga. Like, they eventually end up at the R&D division. This is a shot of Ukitake healing up Kenpachi. This is setting up for later. And then we see Uehara and everybody. Nanao has an interesting piece of dialogue with Uehara, where Nanao brings up, like, hey, there's something I don't understand about this conflict. You know, the Quincy's and the Shinigami have been fighting for, like, the last 1,200 years and all that stuff, right? And everything. Well, why did they leave the Shinigami alive when they went to the Soul Palace? And Uehara kind of explains that, well, the Quincy's and the Shinigami, Quincy's don't really fit into the way the world works. And it's because of that they're aiming for the Reo. So their total goal is not the Shinigami. Nanao was a little confused by that. Uehara is like, no, they're going for the Reo. They're not just trying to kill all Shinigami. They're trying to kill the Reo and restructure everything back into the way it was. We see this interesting shot here as Ichigo gets knocked back into the inner palace and it's kind of destroyed. We see this shot here. Now, I don't know if this is just supposed to be like a visual representation of this, of like maybe the chaotic stream of the world beforehand or whatever, but or if this is supposed to be like the actual inside of the inner palace, like when Yhwach destroyed the rock that make up the inner palace, this is what's on the inside of it. And it's these like, I'm kind of hesitant to say what these are. Like, looking at them is just a still frame right here. They look just like kanji or something kanji-esque. But in the anime, they are kind of shimmering. It looks like they're a bunch of television screens. But looking at it this way, it just seems to be like a bunch of script that's like written on the inside of the palace walls kind of thing, right? And, yeah. Now, if we go back really quick to just the beginning of this episode, where we see the triplet world and the Soul King and maintaining balance and everything, I don't know if this is the way it's supposed to be interpreted. This is the way I interpreted it. So the Yhwach refers to the Soul King as his father. Like, you are my father, die now. It's the future you saw, wasn't it? Right, okay. So we see Yhwach floating in this pool, but Yhwach is kind of separate from his father. Like, his father is like some distance away in the pool in the center of these three ripples, which represent the three worlds, Hueco Mundo, Soul Society, Living World. And then Yhwach is way off in the distance, kind of observing his father. And then at one point, Yhwach falls through the water and then, lands in the living world. So I wonder if this, because there's a lot of Judeo-Christian kind of references here, like Yhwach is basically God, or like Quincy Jesus or whatever. He's like, oh, my father, God, yes, okay. But are they doing a spin here with, like, Yhwach maybe being, like, Lucifer, like, cast out of heaven or something, cast down below or something like that? And then so, because the Quincy's whole nature is to destroy the Hollows, which you could argue was kind of the original, the basis for Adonais, was the Reo, was like, oh, these Menos are rising up into power, and I don't want that. So the Reo literally, I think the legend and the lore is he turned the Menos into sand. Like, the sand in Hueco Mundo is the made up out of the destroyed, just completely obliterated Menos corpses that the Reo did when he took over and started controlling everything, right? So, like, is this idea, like, Yhwach was created back when the Reo was really, really annoyed about the Hollows and is like, I need to create a being to slay all the Hollows. Like, that needs to be their main premise. And then it's like, where does Yhwach fit in this, like, trifecta? Like, this literally, like, once again, this is another reference to, like, Christianity specifically. You have the not the Triforce, what was it called? The Trinity. That was it. The Trinity. It's called the Triforce. The Trinity. The Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, that kind of shit, right? So it might be a thing where Yhwach exists, like, outside of that, and it's like, oh no, I exist to destroy Hollows. That's what Quincy's exist to do. But it's like, oh no, in this world you don't belong, and that's why what led to their extermination multiple times and stuff like that. So that's the way I'm interpreting it. I don't know if that made sense, but that's the way I'm going with it. Let me know on your thoughts on that down below. We do have Akon actually mentioning that they are planning on creating a gate. Yhwach has not Urahara has not explained that yet, but we do have them mentioning, like, oh yeah, we're going to try to create a gate. There's Yushiro back there. But yeah, something interesting there that is Urahara was giving this explanation that I just came up with the idea of, like, oh, this is like Yhwach is a remnant of a previous state of the world back when Adonais was in charge, and Adonais is still technically in charge because he's the linchpin, but he doesn't really have, like, a consciousness anymore, right? Yeah, that got all ripped out of him, right? He doesn't have a heart, he doesn't have his limbs, and he's just in constant suffering. So yeah, so Ichigo is defeated, but is he? So he gets back up and he's like, no, Yhwach, I will defeat you. And there's a cool shot here where Orihime jumps behind Ichigo, uses her Soten Kishun to heal him up. All of the blood goes away. Ichigo's back to full power and continues to charge at Yhwach here. But it's at that moment that we see the scene from Ichibei down below, who says, you guys won't be able to defeat Yhwach. It's just, but don't worry, it's okay, but that's what peace is all about. Ichibei is like, we have plans for all of this. Ichibei has been alive for like several million years. He kind of gets it. It's like, look, yeah, Adonais is probably going to die. We're going to have to probably throw Ichigo in there or somebody else in there to be the Soul King. You get the impression Ichibei really doesn't give a shit about who it has to be as long as the status quo is maintained. That's kind of the idea. So I don't think Ichibei is going to lose any sleep over this. So we got the triplet world as the interstitch on the episode. We cut back here to Rukia and Renji heading towards Squad 12. They meet up with Hirako and Momo, Soifone, and Marechio. There's a little bit more dialogue with everybody in the manga. There's a little joke between Soifone and, like smacking Marechio, but then also speaking up for Marechio's little sister of like, hey, she was injured, we just couldn't leave her here. And then Renji is like, oh, wow, Captain Soifone kind of mellowed out a little bit, didn't she? And Rukia is like, no, she was always pretty kind. As long as you aren't Marechio, I guess she was always pretty nice, but yeah. So Ichigo is confronting Yhwach, and, we also got this cool scene. Now, this, once again, is something that happens a little later in the manga. So, Yoruichi steps in. Finally, she steps in. I mean, Chad and Ganju are support back there unless things get really rough. But Yoruichi steps in, uses Tenshi Heiso Hisekai Kumo. So, it's the, tearing spider net. Remember that the Shihoing clan is the one of the noble clans in the Soul Society that is responsible for the godly gears department, like the sacred armory. Like, that's what they are, right? So they have a bunch of this really cool godly swag that nobody else has in the Soul Society. We see it. Oh, there's a shot of Yoruichi's butt. I actually missed that in the original run of the episode. So just enjoy Yoruichi's ass right there. But no, like, there's a bunch of different skills and stuff she has that she can, like, use against people. And you might argue that, like, oh, these things work a little bit different than, like, regular Zanpakuto or, like, Kido or anything. These are, like, godly armaments maybe handed down by the Zero Squad, like, you know, millions of years ago or something like that. So this is one of them. This is, like, a bunch of, like, wires she throws out to ensnare Yhwach, and she says that if he touches one of these wires, he'll be, like, shredded or, like, ripped apart. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen because he has the Almighty, so he just toggles that back on, and it's really like a cheat code. It's like, let me just turn on God mode really quick. Click, and then just destroy everything. So the wires get burned up. This is something that happens a lot later in the manga. Like, Yhwach has the wires around him, like, for a while in the manga, like a couple of chapters before he finally decides to break out of it. Happens almost immediately right here. So the wires get covered in blue fire, and then that fire also ignites the cloth, which finally reveals the fucking Rayo as, like, oh, by the way, yeah, the Rayo, I stabbed him. Ha 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 ha. Didn't see that one coming, did you? You know, so there's that. Yoruichi got to at least do something here. So everybody's kind of stunned and shocked, like, that's the Soul King? That's what he is? I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to assume if you ever get stabbed by a sword, and I don't know, there's not a lot of people running around with swords, but if you're at an anime convention or a Renaissance festival or something, and you accidentally get stabbed with a sword, I'm just going to say, probably shouldn't pull it out right away. Probably should, like, you know, do I take it out or do I leave it in? Do I take it out or do I leave it in? You know, it's like, you know, the Rayo got stabbed, and it caused earthquakes and tremors and things, but things seem to be kind of stable, like semi-stable right now. Like, the entire world is not disintegrating, so you at least have some time. Ichigo, I feel like this is, even before Yhwach did the whole thing where he invaded your Ryatsu with his own and forced you to cut down the Rayo, I feel like at this point, maybe you shouldn't even have tried. I know it's like natural reflex, like, I know I was supposed to save the Soul King, oh my god, I gotta pull out the sword, oh shit. You know, like, maybe I'm just gonna left the sword in there for a while. Maybe it would have bought us a little bit more time, but whatever, okay. Ichigo tries to pull out the sword, which he does. However, the Ryatsu that's inside of Yhwach's blade, which is still unnamed, we still don't know the name of Yhwach's sword. I used to call it, oh man, I can't remember what I called it back in the day. I did have a name for it. I think I used the German word to cleanse for the sword's name, because I just thought that was very appropriate with, like, Yhwach's whole aesthetic and everything. But anyway, so Ichigo tries to pull out the sword, the Blute Vina begins to invade him, and he, like, I can't help it, no, I can't, you know, so he picks up the sword and he slashes the Soul King. If the Quincy blood courses through you, Ichigo, then the Soul King is your enemy as well. And we have the shot where Ichigo slices the crystal in half, effectively slicing the Rayo in half. It's okay. You still got the wires. The wires are still kind of keeping him supported up there. That's okay. Oh yeah, there's also this shot of Orihime. There's also this shot of Orihime in this episode. There you go, everybody. All right, Chad, it looks like it's time for you to finally take the stage. Chad, go over there, paste, you know, lift up the Soul King, shove them back together into one thing. I'm sure Yoruichi's got some super glue. You'll be okay. We can fix this. We can fix this. Your actions, your will, your everything, Ichigo. I needed someone who possessed the powers of Quincy's, humans, Fullbringers, Hollows, all in one thing. Where are we going to find somebody like that? We're going to need the main character of a manga in order to make that happen. So yes, we go through a whole little flashback scene of Ichigo awakening his Soul Reaper powers in to begin with, and then eventually getting the powers of his true Zanpakutos. And then a giant bright light just begins to spew from the Soul King's corpse, and it covers the entire royal palace, and it also extends down into the Seirete. This destroys the roof, which is something else in the manga. They actually open the roof to travel to the Soul Palace. Here, the roof is just fucking destroyed, so that's a difference in the manga. Not a big one, but there's a difference. We also have a shot of Huecamundo, the little lighted up tent where Yukio and Riruka and Grim Banjao are waiting. They're going to be showing up relatively soon. We have the world of the living, where we have Tatsuki, Mizuru, and Keigo hanging out, and they're checking to like see like what's up with this earthquake. You know, no one can find the epicenter. No, science has failed us. You know, no geological phenomenon is like this before. Then there's also a shot where Tatsuki is looking down at the soul pass, at like the little soul tickets that Shunsui gave them last core. So this is interesting. I wonder if they're going to actually have Tatsuki and Keigo and Mizuru go into the Soul Society. And then they might meet up with like Uehara's group, because they have the whole thing where they have to take the orbs and channel their soul their soul pressure, spiritual pressure, their Ryatsu into it to power the gates. And I wonder if they're gonna go and like, because Tatsuki and Keigo and Mizuru, they have spirit pressure. They don't have a lot of it, but they have some Ryatsu. So you could maybe use that as just like a, hey, let's have Tatsuki hang out with Ichigo again. Let's have them meet each other. Like, that's something. I don't know. Or she could just be looking at it as like a visual representation of like, I'm thinking about Ichigo right now. Like, I guess, sure, but like the soul tickets don't really ever come into play ever in the manga, so you could actually use them here for something. So everybody's looking up at the sky. Ukitake's there. You know, he's thinking about... I think we all know what else is on Ukitake's mind right here. What's going to happen with Ukitake in the upcoming episode. Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and even the world of the living, they will all cease to exist. And that's Uehara's line. And then that is effectively the end of the episode, as Ichigo is just standing there dumbfounded now with the blute still covering his body, like, let us watch it together, Ichigo. The birth of the original world and the end of the Soul Society. Bleach 28, kill the king! Alright. This is a pretty fucking good episode. This is pretty good. I mean, last time was mostly just a recap, but this we actually include a lot of stuff here. There is no post-credit sequence this time. But we get this cool shot here as Ichigo and Yhwach clash. All right, so there's a lot going on there. I'm starting to get back into the vibe of doing these, getting back into the flow. Last time I looked over a lot of things. Like, there was a moment where Uryu actually went into his Volt standing, and I actually just glossed over that in the last episode. But I got to get back in the rhythm of Bleach. I don't think I called Kubo Oda in this one, so that also is getting better. Next episode is going to be the Dark Arm, I believe, is the name of the next one. Yes, the Dark Arm. And that's, of course, referring to the Mimihage, the right arm of the Soul King. So we're going to find out about Ukitake's backstory in the next episode, so I'm hoping they add on to that a little bit. We got a little bit of it in the manga, but it would be cool to learn a little bit more. And I also hope we get to see Aizen. We didn't see Aizen in this episode, so I hope to see Aizen and Shunsui in the next episode. I really want to see that. And we're probably also going to cover a lot of the stuff like Kenpachi coming out of the... In fact, I did see previews for the next episode. We do see Kenpachi coming out of surgery, and we have his little moment with Nanao that we did not get in this episode, but is happening concurrently with everything. So, but yeah, that is episode 28 of BAN-KAST. Hope you all enjoyed. Good to be back, everybody. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, BAN-KAST. Check it out on Spotify, Google Play, and then also my main channel, Teching 101, where we talk about One Piece. Thanks for watching. This will be Teching, signing out. Later, everyone.